I used to think old houses only kept smells. Cooking oil in curtains, winter wet boots, a ghost of grapefruit from someone who loved mornings. After my mother died and I came back to the split level in the cul-de-sac where the pavement still remembers our chalk races, I learned houses also keep voices caught in small machines we forgot had a hunger for them. My name is Daniel. I grew up on Rose Hill Court in a suburb where the mailboxes lean at the same angle because one snowplow driver has an opinion. My mother, Miriam, taught ninth grade English and collected other people's truths the way some people collect recipes. Stories are survival kits, she'd say, handing a paperback to a kid who didn't know they were asking for one. She was the kind of teacher whose former students waved from grocery aisles. At home, she was gentler and more mysterious, a woman who wrote on index cards and tucked them into books like her thoughts needed bookmarks. She died in April. We'd been bracing since November, the way you brace for a predictable storm that still knocks down the wrong trees. My wife, Elena, held the back end of everything: forms, calls, casseroles. Grief made my body mechanical. Her steadiness made it merciful. After the funeral, neighbors delivered tuna bakes and condolence cards and gossip disguised as concern. The front walk filled with flowers, lilies that smelled like bad news, and peonies that didn't know what they were attending. We decided to spend the weekend sorting the house. Elena said we should set aside anything I wasn't sure about. Certainty, she argued, is a bad judge when you're hungry. She is a person who handles fragile things like they have agency. I wanted to be the person who does too. The living room looked like an estate sale for a kindly ghost. Afghans crocheted in improbable colors, ceramic birds that had never flown, stacks of The Atlantic with paragraphs my mother had bracketed like she was grading them. In the den, my father's territory before he left when I was 12, there was a low rectangular cabinet with a bottom drawer that had always stuck. When I forced it, the smell changed. Older air puffed up, the past in a small, stale exhale. Inside, a shoebox with my mother's looping script on the lid, "Keep for Daniel." I lifted the lid expecting letters. Instead, there were cassette tapes, each in a clear plastic case that had turned the color of old honey. My mother had labeled them with dates and 2 letters, VC. The dates ran from 2006 to 2012 years when I was leaving and returning and failing at both. Stuffed into the side of the box was a portable tape player, the kind with a window where you can watch the tiny reels turn, and a pack of AA batteries that felt like time travel. "Find something?" Elena called from the kitchen, where she was waging war on a drawer that had collected rubber bands and menus and a century of pencils too short to be optimistic. "Tapes," I said, the word feeling theatrical and quaint. I put in batteries with the superstition of someone preparing to listen to the dead. The first tape clicked into place with a mechanic's certainty. I pressed play. There was a hiss, the sound of history rehearsing, and then my mother's voice, younger than mine, speaking with the careful warmth she gave to kids who didn't trust adjectives yet. "This is Miriam," she said. "If you're listening, future me, it means you've got a new entry from her, or from me, or from both of us. Voices are houses. Sometimes you need to walk through them more than once." Then another voice, unfamiliar and familiar at the same time, like a song you almost recognize. Brighter, faster than I know it now, closer to laughter even when it wasn't. "Hi," the other voice said, a nervous inhale. It's Vera today. That's not my real name. I know you said I can use whatever feels safe. Today it's Vera because I want to be someone who tells the truth and doesn't go back and fix it." I paused the tape. The room shifted. No, the room didn't. I did. Elena came into the doorway, dish towel in hand, watching my face the way you watch a glass you're not sure will tip. "What is it?" she asked. "Listen," I said and pressed play. "My mother's appointment went badly," the voice continued. "The oncologist was apologetic. People always apologize when the body tells them the truth. We had to decide whether to try another round of chemo, and I heard myself say, 'We'll do whatever gives us more time,' and I watched her hear it like I had offered us a second chance at summer. But then we got home and she went to sleep and I stood in the kitchen and could not stand it, the quiet. That's when I called you, except it's a tape, so technically I called nobody. I keep thinking if I talk into a machine long enough, The future will remember me without bitterness. Elena and I looked at each other the way you look when a familiar word appears in an unfamiliar language. My wife's name is Elena. Before Elena, she was a lot of names, Ellie to her father when he wanted to soften the world for her. Elle to friends who liked the idea of being conspiratorial, a different full name when she was trying to feel whole in a city that asked for parts. But Vera is a name she sometimes uses when she needs a self with sharper edges. She had used it once at a coffee shop with a barista who touched her wrist to hand back change she didn't need, and she came home that day and said, "I told a boy I was Vera. I needed to be." When I looked up from the tape, Elena's face had turned the color of decision. "I think that's me," she said, "but younger." "How?" I asked. "You didn't know my mother." "I didn't," she said. "I knew a flyer in a community center with a pull tab. It said voicemail for the Lonely Hours Anonymous. Leave a message. I'll answer with a tape." The number was local. I was 22. My mother was sick. I talked to strangers like rope. I never kept the tapes they sent back until one of them felt different. The voice was like a room I could sit in without being looked at. She called herself Miriam. We didn't speak for a minute. The tape hissed, waiting. "Do you want me to stop?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. If the past going to crash the weekend, let's let it." I pressed play. My mother's voice answered in that same patient key. "Hi, Vera," she said. "I'm sorry about the appointment. Doctors speak in weather, and sometimes their forecasts come true. You don't owe anyone optimism. Try an experiment. Tell the truth to the kettle. Tell the kettle, I am scared and selfish and angry and also trying. Then let it boil and make tea and see if your body lets you sit for 10 minutes without moving to fix a thing." The tape clicked. My mother must have mailed that to a younger Elena, who must have listened alone somewhere like a lifeguard at an empty pool. Then, a new date 2 months later. The same young voice, steadier and more dangerous. "Hi, Miriam. My mother died last week. It was a good death, if you can say that about a horror. She did not leave me instructions. I wanted instructions. The house is so loud with things to do that I can't hear any of the things I need to feel. I keep reaching for my phone to call my ex the nice one, the one who would come hold boxes in my hand. I think I'm horrible for wanting him when I don't love him. I think I'm horrible for wanting anyone. I might be horrible. Do you ever think grief makes us rotten?" My mother's reply was softer. "I think grief ferments us," she said. "Sometimes the smell is awful, but the thing you get from waiting is stronger than the thing you started with. Please eat 1 sandwich and drink 2 glasses of water. Then call the nice ex if the part of you that wants gentleness is louder than the part that wants performance." We let the player hum that word gentleness until it evaporated. Elena leaned against the doorframe. Her knuckles were white around the towel. "Did you keep talking to her?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Not always. Mostly when the nights got mean." "Did she ever mention me?" I asked, feeling dumb as soon as the sentence left my mouth. "We didn't meet until 2014, 2 years after the last date on the tapes." The next tape answered for her. New date, late 2011. My mother's voice, "Hi, Vera. Today someone named Daniel came by with a poem about a boy who hides in a bathroom during pep rallies because crowds make him feel like God is too loud. He didn't write it. He found it. He was proud as if language had chosen him, like a dog does. He said something to me that made me think of you. I'm tired of being useful. I told him usefulness is a losing race against time. I'm telling you, you don't exist to incur gratitude." Elena laughed softly, a sound I love because it never pretends. "She never said your last name," she said. "I never knew this was your house." "How could you?" I said. "I didn't know my mother ran a hotline." "She called it a voicemail," Elena said. "A place to put the truth where it wouldn't fall on anyone's lap." I didn't write it down because I was afraid of anyone seeing it. We listened to another, then another. A rhythm emerged. Elena Vera then talked about learning to sleep without the shape of caretaking. She confessed to cheating once, in a bookstore of all places, not with bodies but with attention. I told a stranger my whole day because it was easier to tell someone whose life I wasn't responsible for. I went home to my boyfriend and couldn't repeat any of it, without feeling like a plagiarist. That's a cheat too, right? My mother answered, it's a betrayal if you use it to keep from saying the thing to the person who earned it. Practice saying it ugly. 2 tapes later. I met someone, Vera's voice said, lighter than I had ever heard Elena be. He's tall in the way that makes doorways look designed for him. He makes lists for everything. He narrates the dog across the street like he's responsible for her emotional arc. When he laughs, he inhales as if he can't bear to waste any of the joy. He is so good that I want to run. Is there a word for being allergic to kindness? My mother laughed then, in the way that still lives in my bones, and said, yes, we call that having a nervous system. When he writes you a room, try living in it. I paused the tape and stared at the wall until the paint looked like continents. Elena sat on the arm of the chair and touched my hair the way she does when she needs to make sure I still live here. That was you, she said, as if she was pointing out a bird I'd missed, the kind you only see once a season. It sounds better than I was, I said. You were that and also other things, she said. We are rarely only one animal. We worked through more boxes. We ate crackers because grief makes real meals feel like lies. In the afternoon, while Elena sorted scarves with unearned tact, I stayed with the tapes. The young voice admitted to petty crimes, lying about liking a band because a boy did, deleting voicemails when they felt like assignments. She confessed to being drawn to married men, not because she wanted to break anything, but because the fantasy of being unchosen was safer. My mother's answers refused the melodrama and spoke to the part underneath. Ask yourself if you're flirting with safety or danger, she said. Try flirting with boredom. Boredom is where we build things. Then there was a tape I did not expect. New date, March 2012. My mother breathed in like someone preparing to speak into a meeting she doesn't want to attend. Hi, Vera, she said. I am going to cheat today and not ask how you are. I want to tell you something I should have told my son and didn't. Today I failed. A student asked for help and I snapped because I was tired and thought I was done. I apologized, but the apology felt like a coat that didn't close. I came home and sat on the kitchen floor and promised not to be a person who asks other people to make me proud of myself. If I've done that to you, I'm sorry. You are not my project. You are a person I get to talk to sometimes. I am going to write to my son now because he's the one who deserves this confession. I'm telling you so I can't pretend I did it quietly. The tape clicked. Silence filled the edges like water finds the low places. Elena blew out a breath. I think that's when she stopped sending me tapes, she said. I wrote a few more. She didn't respond. I didn't take it personally. I told myself strangers are allowed to disappear. That's the contract. I rewound and replayed the laugh in my mother's throat where my name lived. Grief climbed up from my stomach and sat on my chest like an indignant cat. I wanted to be angry at something simple. At my mother for talking to my future wife when I didn't know she was lonely. At Elena for telling a stranger the things I thought I had earned. At a machine for being so good at keeping what shouldn't last. All I could manage was the primary color of tired. We can stop, Elena said. No, I said, not because I wanted to keep bleeding, but because I had the sense the bleed was a clean one. We made tea. The kettle cried and calmed. We pressed play again. A new tape. The voice was different. Not Vera, not Elena, but someone who had spent the long summer learning how to be a person who doesn't make other people responsible for their weather. Hi, Miriam. It's me. I'm using my real name today because I finally want to live with the thing I am. Elena. You don't have to write back. I wanted to tell you I stopped choosing men who like the story of my pain more than me. I wanted to tell you I applied for a job I'm underqualified for, and I am going to regret it and then do it anyway. I wanted to tell you that if a kind man shows up, I'm going to try to let myself be lucky. I paused it. Elena watched me and smiled in that slow way I call her yes. Hi, she said, like a woman reintroducing herself to a tired town. Hi, I said back, because sometimes your marriage needs ceremony as small as syllables. We could have stopped there. An arc, a bow that didn't force the ribbon, but the box had more. I pulled another tape. Late 2014, months after Elena and I met. New label, VC, last. I pressed play. My mother's voice, the one I lost in April, spoke in a whisper I knew she'd used at bedsides and kitchens and office hours when students cried about the future, and she tried to leave them with something that didn't curdle. "Hi, Elena," she said. "I ran into your voice today at the grocery store." "Silly, I know. A woman laughed the way you did when you stopped apologizing for taking up space. It made me think of you. I keep thinking of you when I teach Hamlet's dumb bravery. I don't know where you are. I hope somewhere with light. I want you to know I'm listening less now and living more, which is my late-in-life rebellion. I told my son something hard and he forgave me slower than I wanted, which is exactly the speed forgiveness needs. If you ever find this, I want you to know I didn't answer you at the end, not because you weren't worth writing to, but because I wanted you to write to someone who could buy you bread and hold your hand in line. Go find him if you haven't. Ask him to write you a room." I stopped the tape because we both needed to breathe. Elena had her face in her hands. I leaned forward until our foreheads touched like we were solving a problem with geometry. "My God," she said, not meaning God. "I think your mother told me how to love you before I learned your last name." I wanted to argue with the romance of that, to complain that life doesn't owe us such clever symmetry. I pressed play instead. The tape clicked and gave us one more thing, a postscript. My mother's voice low and embarrassed by her own sentiment. "For what it's worth," she said, "my son is taller than me now. He is also better than me at changing the subject. If you meet him, please make him stop. The world pays better for genuine." The light from the den threw a square on the carpet. Dust performed the theater Dust loves. Elena wiped her eye with the heel of her palm, a habit I tease her about because it's a child's gesture, and I prefer it to all adult ones. "What does this do?" she asked. "For us? For you?" I looked at the tangled cords of the tape player, at the neat dates on my mother's labels, at the shoebox that had made a little room in my chest feel less haunted. "It doesn't change the past," I said. "It changes who sits in it with me." We made dinner badly. We burned onions. We ate standing up because chairs felt ceremonial, and we wanted human. After, we took a walk on a street that had tilted toward spring. The neighbor's dog did his theatrical bark. Someone grilled something that made the air remember baseball. On our way back, Elena took my hand and said, "There's one more thing, which is the sentence you never want and always need." "I wrote something after we met," she said. "Not to your mother, to myself, on a tape. I had one of those stupid recorders with a tiny mic, and I recorded a message on a night when you were late because traffic, and then said you were sorry, and I believed you, and I cried because I was tired and happy and terrified. It's in our closet. It's labeled, 'If I ever forget to say thank you.'" I never listened to it. I was afraid it would sound like begging. "Let's listen," I said. "Not because I want to hear you beg, because I want to hear you." We didn't, not that night. We fell asleep on the ugly couch with our heads on opposite armrests, like a badly staged romantic comedy. In the morning, we drove home with the shoebox seat-belted in like a witness. The house felt too new for ghosts. Elena made coffee and stood in the doorway with an expression I couldn't math until she laughed and said, "You're afraid of the tape. You think it will be proof that I loved you too much?" "I'm afraid of anything that makes me feel like I owe a machine my gratitude," I said. She went into the bedroom and came back with a small black recorder, like something spies used in movies when movies needed gadgets. She pressed play. The tape hissed. Then her younger voice, only slightly younger, filled our kitchen with a kind of forgiveness I hadn't known I was allowed. "Hi," it said. "It's me. Future me, probably. If you're listening because you forgot to say thank you, pick 3 things now and say them, out loud, even if he's in the other room and you feel dumb. Thank you for cooking even when you're tired. Thank you for the emails you send me about dumb birds that act like people. Thank you for saying you don't know when I ask you questions you could fake answers to. If he hurt you, leave. If you hurt him, stop. If the world gets loud, go to where the light comes in, under the door, and put your hand in it, and remember that's still a way to measure time." We didn't clap because that would have turned our kitchen into a theater, and we didn't want that. We kissed like people who had good luck and weren't too proud to admit it. Later at the table, I took a piece of paper and wrote 3 lines because I am not an eloquent man when the point is to be plain. 1. I will not outsource intimacy to strangers living or dead. 2. I will write you rooms and sit in them with you when you want me to, and wait outside when you don't. 3. When I do not know, I will say so. I will not fix with answers the questions that deserve listening. Elena stuck it to the fridge with a dumb magnet shaped like a tomato. She wrote under it, I will ask ugly. I will not use machines to deliver courage I owe to your face. We still had to finish my mother's house. We still had to decide about the couch with springs that reach for you like need. We still had to return the casserole dish to the woman down the block who said, your mother saved my daughter's freshman year, and looked like she meant it, and also like she had used that sentence to tour living rooms all week. On our last afternoon at Rose Hill, we found an index card in a book. My mother's thin capitals, 4D. A teacher knows where to leave notes. On the other side, a quote from Natalia Ginsburg that I'd heard my mother say with a lemon rind between her fingers. The only way to be certain something is the truth is to tell it and see if it survives in the air. Beneath, in my mother's own words, if this found you with the right person, breathe differently and keep them. We walk through the rooms saying goodbye the way polite people do, not because houses listen, but because people do. In the den, I put the tape player and the shoebox back in the drawer labeled keep, then took them out again and put them in the car because only an idiot leaves his inheritance to an empty house. In the kitchen, Elena stood in front of the window where my mother used to watch me dig in the dirt for nothing. What would you say to her, she asked, if we had one more tape? I pressed my palm to the cool glass that remembered winters and then asked the small, stupid, honest question that has become the way I keep from telling pretty lies. What should I say? Elena smiled in the half of her mouth that prefers sincerity. Maybe say this. I found her. She listens. I am trying. Also, your boy laughs like you thought he would when he was little, and the world didn't manage to ruin that. Ayoom. We set it into the kitchen and into the air, and then into nothing, which is also sometimes where it belongs. Months later, on a Sunday when the light pooled in a polite way on the floor, and the upstairs neighbor practiced scales as if he wanted us to survive, we took the tapes out, made tea, and listened again to my mother and a younger Elena build a bridge neither of them knew I'd later cross. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like timing being strange and generous and occasionally precise. In the middle of the third tape, where my mother told Vera to put a hand into the light, the neighbor's trumpet jumped an octave, and we both laughed, because I am not a religious man, but if I were, I'd say God sometimes has a sense of humor and a metronome. I don't think old houses only keep smells. They keep rooms in your body you didn't open when you had the key. They keep a mother's voice explaining weather to a girl who will someday become your wife. They keep a shoebox with the word keep on it, like an instruction and a prayer. They keep the minutes you thought you forgot and hand them back to you on small plastic reels that spin when you're brave enough to press play. Sometimes late at night, when Elena is asleep and the apartment feels like a boat tied to a quiet dock, I go to the kitchen, take one of the tapes, and press my ear to the cold window. I don't press play, I just hold the box and count the seconds between traffic sighs until my body remembers the room where two women I love taught each other how to say the true thing. Then I go back to bed and try to be the person who can hear it without needing a machine to make it brave. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. It means a lot. New stories like this one are posted every single day, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one. And if this story touched you, please give it a like. It really helps more people find our content.